Okay, here is the power rankings for Season 5, the PSL. Now, how these rankings work. These are not just me ranking your teams. This is more of like a likelihood to win the championship. So, don't think of these as me ranking your teams. Think of it like you open a sports betting app, you go to the odds section, and you see the team's odds to win the championship, okay? Think of this as like a sports book, like ranking your likelihood to win the championship. They're giving out the odds of your team to win the championship. That's what these rankings are. So that means they take coaching skill into account. They take a lot of different things into account. It's not just how good your team is. So that means new coaches who are unproven and haven't shown themselves to be like dominant yet are going to be ranked a little lower until they prove themselves, okay? Once you prove themselves as a solid coach, then your team's going to be rated higher. This is likelihood to win the championship. And in my opinion, coaching matters more or just as much as how good the team is overall. So you're going to see a lot of coaches that have proven themselves and are legit good coaches. They're going to be higher on the rankings because that's just how it works. If you have a good coach, he's probably going to beat a bad coach no matter what team he has, no matter what team the other person has. If there's a big coaching gap, the good coach is going to win all the time. So this is based on likelihood to win the championship. And another thing, Donkey is the GOAT. He is the GOAT. He went through and he ranked every single team and sent it to me to give me like a baseline to work off of. I only asked him to rank half and I'd do the other half. I just wake up and I see a message in my DMs. He's ranked every single team. He's given them a whole criteria and everything and ranked all these individual things and given me like a whole baseline to go off, and I've just made small adjustments to it. So he is the GOAT. And again, he's all fucking dominated the draft. 32 teams and we finished in 4.5 days. That's like insane. Most 12 team shitty leagues don't even finish within that time. So like, he's all went crazy. And I was going to wait until the end of the season, but like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it now. I'm going to announce the drafter of the year, who wins the best drafter of the year award. And there are a few runner-ups, like Queen for drafting the Chandler line. That was epic. Zone Cryptid, because he just always drafts the funnest drafts. But the draft MVP for Season 5 is Ladner, because that motherfucker left pick after pick after pick. He never got skipped. He always had a pick left. He always had backups. He always came in and edited his picks if something got stolen. He always let me know if he changed something. The dude was on fire leaving his picks. He was by far the best. And that is why he wins the MVP for the Season 5 draft. Okay, so let's just get straight into it. So, Pittsburgh. I'm going to try to go through these pretty quickly because there's a lot of teams, otherwise we'll be here for like 2 hours. So, Pittsburgh. This team is fun. This is a fun team. It's a fun team, but the problem with this team is it has so many Pokemon that just overlap in what they do. And like half his team doesn't need to really be here. Like, he has 4 fighting types, 3 normal types, 2 dark types. There's like so many Pokemon that just don't really need to be here, and there's no defense at all. So this is like a very fun offensive team, but this is very similar to his Season 3 team. And I said when we were doing the rankings for that team, it's like, this team's going to be hard to use because it is all offensive. There is no defense, but it's slow. And when you have an offensive team, you can't switch out, right? So your 1v1 matchup, you need to have the advantage. If you're slower, you're not going to have the advantage. The team's slow, doesn't really have switch-ins to anything. And yeah, I said it was going to be the hardest team, and he went 0-5, then drafted a team of tier 1s and made playoffs. So like, that's how hard that team was to use, and this has given me those vibes. Possibly even harder. Like, this is a very fucking hard team to use. There's no switch-ins for anything. He's gonna have to play perfectly, position perfectly. He does have a little more momentum this season, but he's gonna need to coach like a fucking god to kind of win the championship in this one. 31 is Detroit. Very, very, very similar to Ninja's team. The problem with this team, exactly the same. So it's a little faster. And the defense is there, sort of. They're like Brute Bonnet and Incineroar and Rotomo. So there is like some sort of like defensive core, except there's a lot of overlapping of typings. Like there's 5 dark types on this team. You have like almost every Pokemon on this team has a fairy resist for Gengar. Like it's crazy. But there's a lot of holes on the team. There's only one like hazard setter, and it's Gengar with toxic spikes. Yeah, there's a lot of Pokemon here where it's like they're never gonna come because there's another Pokemon that does the same thing. It's like, will you ever bring Surfetch when you got Buzzwole there, or vice versa? And if you need like an offensive dark type, are you gonna bring Crawdaunt, Incineroar, Moltres? There's like they all can kind of do different things a little bit with the typing, but they overlap so much, it might as well just be something else. Like, if Crawdaunt was a bulky water type, or Moltres was like a bulkier flying type, then this team would be very solid. It would be really, really, really good. It's just, so there's a lot of offensive pieces, but they overlap a lot. You got like Iron Jugulus and Galarian Moltres, you know, they're like, you bring one or the other, they kind of do the same thing. They don't really need to be on the same team. So if I was Hayden, I would make a few trades, really work something out, get some good defensive Pokemon, ditch some of the Pokemon that overlap doing the same thing, and get some more like hazard setters. So this team can be legit. But Simply Haydos, 2-time Man of the Year back to back. So he's the GOAT. If anyone deserves to win a championship, it is him. This guy is a god. Next we have the LA Rampardos. Lon, probably the most popular person in the league. This team's pretty good. I like the offense. I love the offense on this team with Zeraora, Necrozma, Lucario. If he masters how to use them, he can win the championship. These 3 Pokemon are insane. I think they're all top 10, top 15 Pokemon in the draft. Lucario is a fucking god. Don't sleep on it. It's very hard to use though. The defense, I really like the defense too, with Togekiss, Steelix, Snorlax, Deoxys, Necrozma. I don't know, the problem is Necrozma and Deoxys defense shouldn't be on the same team. They kind of do the same thing. It's just kind of like a waste of points. And then the last 3 picks, Altaria, Tropius, and Pikachu, I don't really like. Tropius and Altaria are fine, both together. Could have been something else. And then Pikachu with Zeraora, great. I think Pikachu's kind of like a sleeper pick, one of the best tier 1s. I think it's kind of sick, but maybe not with Zeraora. So I think there are 4 Pokemon that just don't really belong on the team. But other than that, the other picks are like legit. This team's like legit. So Lonlo, there's potential here. If Lonlo can like utilize Zeraora, Necrozma, Lucario, this team can go all the way. Dallas. So this is the first new team on the list. The problem I had with Dallas is no defense, really at all. It's kind of just like Seismitoad just kind of chilling there. He's just chilling there, and that's kind of it. Alcremie can be like especially defensive, in a way, but other than that, that's like the biggest hole. And there's like kind of like no hazard setters, except for Seismitoad and Dugtrio. I really like the offense though. The offense is really good with Alakazam, Haxorus, Blazion. This 3 trio is insane. I saw these 3 and I was like, this is going to be really good, but if they don't have a good wall breaker, that'll be rough. And then they have Emboar and Obstagoon to kind of break shit. So I like the offense on this team. I think the defense though is a struggle. The reason it's above the other teams is because it's a lot faster. And it's gonna be a lot easier to do its job. The defense is rough. Next is Buffalo. Another person is probably like the most loved coach in the league. Everyone loves this guy. So the problem with this team that I saw is, actually we'll start with the positives. The defense is actually pretty good on this team. We have Slowking, Tangrowth, Gerda's fine, Dragolja's fine. It is missing a 3rd piece to the defensive core. It is missing a solid 3rd defensive Pokemon. And then we have Girafarig and Wobbuffet, who don't really fit the team. Because there's 3 Psychic types on this team. You got Slowking, you don't really need Girafarig or Wobbuffet. And then the offense. So the offense on this team, I actually kind of like, it's just missing something. It's just missing one more extra piece. So Greninja is like really the only like solid win condition. The Syrian Guja can with like body press, iron defense shit. but Greninja's like the really true offensive like win condition. So there's all the pressure on the balls on Greninja, but its attack isn't that strong enough to do it reliably. So there's going to be like a shit ton of pressure on Entei and Golurk and Golge to kind of like break shit to kind of free Greninja to win. And I think that's going to be a little bit difficult to do on the team. But that is how this team will win. If they get these Pokemon to like weaken the team effectively and Greninja to pop off, Greninja needs to win the MVP for this team to win the championship. Tennessee is next. So Tennessee, let me get their team up real quick. Tennessee are another interesting team. You'll notice a trend about all these low-ranked teams is that they don't have a complete defensive core. And you'll see that across the entire league. The best teams are the ones that have a complete defensive core. So I think that's one of the most important things to have in draft. If you're just offensive, you're easily to count. It's easy counted. So this team's offense it's really, really good. It's really, really good. Insanely good win conditions with like Scizor, Lycanroc, Iron Boulder. And you got really good wall breaks with the Aggron and Staraptor, Sea Titan too. Problem is you don't have any special attackers for Belly Bolt, and we'll get to why that's a problem in a minute. Lycanroc and Iron Boulder are really, really good paired together. Not exactly, because they both kind of get checked by the same Pokemon. So the reason Belly Bolt is a really bad special attacker is because your only defensive Pokemon is Gastrodon. Yeah, so with Gastrodon being the only defensive Pokemon, Belly Bolt can kind of be defensive in like the right matchup. And when you're bringing Belly Bolt as your defensive Pokemon, you now have no good special attacker at all on the team whatsoever. So there is like a slight defensive core with like Gastrodon, Belly Bolt, and Toedscruel, but I don't think it's the best one at all. It's not scary to me. I do like some of the offensive threats, but this team just gets countered by Reflect. The Defog though, I don't mind it. The problem is that like 3 of the 4 Defoggers are weak to rocks themselves, which is a bummer. But it does have Rapid Spin as well, so I think the removal is decent. I think the hazards are decent too. It's got everything except for webs. I think though if the offense can break through the fact that everyone knows they're just going to bring all these physical threats, then I think this team will be good. But if teams have the ability to counter that, which if you look so far, none of them have yet, and there is a trend where the defensive Pokemon are not very good in the league as a whole, so defensive cores aren't really there, so this team might be okay, but we'll see. Next we have Cincinnati. So Cincinnati, I cannot remember anything about this team, so I have to get my notes up every time. This has probably one of the best offenses in the league. One of the best, with your Shifu, Kartana, Thundurus, Mamoswine, Terrakion, Iron Leaves, and Tauros. But again, there's like no defense at all. There's not a single defensive Pokemon on this team. As good as the offense is, and as good as the hazards are, there's no defense. There's a few defog options and stuff. The momentum is like fine. It's not the best, but like there's a little bit there. This is also like a 9-team roster because Glimmet and Fuecoco are just kind of like there. So Draco Mediucant took over the team. He didn't really have much to work with. He kind of just had 4 picks left and like 5 points or whatever. So he kind of like dipped and Draco came in and take over. So it's not really his fault that the whole roster like couldn't be completed properly. In my opinion, there's like a few spots missing. The coach, in my opinion, kind of overspent a little bit and then just kind of dipped. So we'll see what he can do. He's come in, he's taking over a team they didn't really draft fully. This is a team that I want to see to do good just for that reason. So hopefully Cincinnati like pops off. New England. So New England, this team's interesting. This is a very bulky team, yet there's also no real defense at the same time. So you got like Zygarde, Celesteela, Nidoqueen, Rochan. Like these are they're very bulky Pokemon. They don't have reliable recovery. And I'm pretty sure Rochan doesn't. I could be wrong, but I'm 90% sure it doesn't. Otherwise I feel like it would be like tiered way higher. So the problem with this team is there's no recovery on any of the bulky options. It just kind of has no longevity to it, and it's really just going to have to rely on winning as quickly as possible. I think Aerodactyl is like legit. Aerodactyl's a really good Pokemon. He has the Cornerstone, which is pretty cool, and Mienshao. So I think for Cornerstone and Mienshao to kind of go off, he really needs webs, and he does have webs with Vikavolt, which is really good. I just don't see this team winning a long battle. If there's a team that can check these offensive threats, I think it's going to be a matter of time. This team's just going to get wear down and it's going to end up losing. So this team really needs to work on figuring out a game plan and then like executing that game plan as quickly as possible. And if they can do that consistently, they will win because they do have the Pokemon to do it. Offensively, they just gotta position themselves right. Next is New Orleans. This team is almost perfect. It kind of is. In like they have Milotic and Meganium. Really, really good together. They're just missing that one last piece to finish the defensive trio. I think Meganium is really, really cool, kind of slept on. Really, really cool with Terra as well. Pairs well with Milotic. Other than that, everything else is just kind of offensive. There's like some things that are like bulky enough to maybe switch in once or twice, like Iron Crown, Iron Thorns, Tinkerton, and Annihilate. Other than that, it's just a very offensive team. The only defogger is Crobat, which I think will hurt a lot. It does have very good hazard options, so this is a decent team. It can definitely win the championship with the offensive Pokemon that it has. I just think its defense needs a bit more help, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Milotic. Milotic's going to have an insane amount of pressure on it. 23, we have Carolina. So, Carolina... 1 second. Okay, Carolina. This team has possibly one of the best defensive trios in the league and a really good offensive duo with Palafin and Galarian Zapdos. This team, I'm going to admit, I think I might have it rated a little bit too low. I think this team might need to move up, and I'm going to wait till the end till I've revealed all the teams, and I'm going to change this team's ranking. This has probably the best defensive trio with Corviknight, Blissey, Swampert. I don't think Swampert's actually that good. I think Swampert's pretty overrated. But when you pair it with Blissey to kind of like keep it healthy, I think it's pretty decent, especially when you got Corviknight there as well to soak up all the fire and electric hits. So I think this is very, very decent. And then you have really good win conditions like Palafin, Butterfree. Can't sleep on Butterfree with Quiver Dance. And then Cinccino. I think you got really good wall breakers with Walking Wake and the Galarian Zapdos. I do think this offense is just missing one more Pokemon. There's just one more really scary Pokemon offensively this team's missing. Another really solid wing condition, like specifically. And this team would be like really, really like legit. This team is ranked too low, so I'm going to wait till we finish and I'm going to give this team a new ranking because it's just too low. Next is Philadelphia. So this is like the coach of the most interesting storyline. He took over an absolute shit show that Lucky Ice Beam Man left. If you know him, congratulations. If you don't worry about it. He came in, took over an absolute disaster, won the championship out of nowhere, made one of the best like Cinderella story comebacks of all time, and then the season after had an absolute stinker. And missed the playoffs. I think he won one game last season, so I don't even know what to do when it comes to like ranking this coach. It was like on top of the world one season, was like looking like to be one of the best in the league, and then the next season just has a disaster. So I'm not sure where to rank this coach. I just kind of gave him like an above average sort of ranking as a coach. But the team itself is like, it's very, very, very scary at first glance. But when you look into it a little deeper, I see some problems. So offensively, he might have the best two wall breakers for their specific role, special physical, with Blood Moon and Iron Hands. Insane. His defensive trio with Galarian Slowking, Alomomola, and Porygon 2. insane. There's a fucking good offensive core and a fucking good defensive core. Add Superior in there as well, I think is like kind of sneaky good. I think Superior is like really good. It seems like this team is going to have everything. Like, has everything to win a championship. The problem I had with this team, even though those Pokemon are so good individually, and even together, I think the problem comes with the rest of the team. Because as bulky as the defensive core is, there's a lot of typings that they just don't cover. And there's a lot of typings where they only have one resistance to on the team. And I think good teams are going to be able to take advantage of that. Okay, most teams have one or two. This team has like 5 or 6 where there's just one typing that they just will absolutely destroy them if they have a move to just counter whatever that one particular switch in is. Like, for example, his only fair resist is Galarian Slowking. His only dark resist is Iron Hands. He has no dragon resist. The only psychic resist is Claydol. The only fire resist is Alamomola. The only flying resist is Avalugg, Hisuian Avalugg. So there's like so many typings that only one Pokemon resists. There's a lot of holes. This team reminds me of like Season 1 and 2 of Buffalot's team. There was like the god tier defensive team where it just had 6, 7 insane defensive Pokemon. But like, there were so many holes in that defensive core. Even though there were 7 defensive Pokemon, it was like really weird. I could never seen anything like that before. But this team's kind of giving me those vibes. It looks like a complete team. It looks like a really good team. But when you look at like the type chart and the weakness chart, there's so many holes in this team. It's kind of a huge glaring weakness. So this team has potential, but he's gonna have to work around those abundance of weaknesses. Next is Kansas City. So everyone knows that I'm a giant Kansas City fan, Kansas City Charizards fan in this league. Not in the NFL, but in this league. This team has a lot of potential. Its offense is really good. The only problem with its offense is that it's fast, but it's not quite fast enough to consistently win games. But it does have webs to help that. So with the Infernape, his Ogerpon, his Mimikyu, the Healygo, he's gonna have a good. This is gonna be a fun team to use. The problem is the defense, though. He has Empoleon, which is really, really good, and then other than that, there's nothing that really like solidifies a good defensive core. There's Paloswine and Braviary, who can be like good defensively, but they're like good Pokemon you want as like the 4th option to a solid defensive trio that can you bring in the right matchup to come and be defensive and like surprise someone. But there's gonna be a lot of pressure on Empoleon. The offense is good though. This is a team where he's gonna have to execute the game plan as quickly as possible because I don't think the defense will be able to like hold up throughout the game. Number 20 is Las Vegas. This team's interesting. This team has very, very good wall-breaking threats. A lot of bulky Pokemon. But again, the defense just isn't complete. There's a lot of defensive Pokemon that can be defensive, like Enamorus, Terrapagos, Regidrago, Fortress, Palafin. Not Palafin. The Tauros, Paldea, the Aqua one. But they're not good, reliable defensive Pokemon because they don't have recovery. They can take a hit, sure, but they're not really going to take 2 or 3, and they're going to get worn down throughout the game. There's Runerigus, who is probably the best defensive Pokemon on the team. It does get Pain Split, I think, which is like decent. But other than that, there's just like a bunch of bulky Pokemon that hit hard, but there's a real lack of like win conditions on the team. However, the low tier MVP of last season was Minior. He was top 5 in kills, I believe. This team is set up perfectly for Minior to destroy and just absolutely clean up this league. And this team is set up for Minior to win MVP. It's got all the wall breakers in the world, and Minior just comes in, presses Shell Smash, and then cleans up. So this team's set up for Minior to win MVP. If Minior can pop off, this team can win a championship, but it all relies on Minior because it's like the only reliable win condition on the team. Number 19, New York Gigantamax. So this team, where are they? this was an interesting team. So I love the offensive combination of Hisuian Arcanine and Primarina. I think they're really, really good. They have Munkidori and Flygon as solid win conditions. The problem I have with this team, again, there is no defensive core. You have Skarmory, which is pretty decent. I think Delmise can be pretty decent as well, but it's missing a solid third option to the defensive core. It's got a few bulky Pokemon that can take hits, like Guzzlord, but it's missing a solid third option. And even Delmise isn't the best Pokemon to have in a defensive core anyway. It's like a solid Pokemon to have when you've already got your core complete, and then you just have that there as like a fourth option. But this team defense is not great. Its removal is pretty good. The removal's decent. The hazards are okay. You got Flygon now, who's got Stealth Rocks, Skarmory, and then Hisuian Arcanine. Problem is, Arcanine and Flygon, you don't really want to set up with them. I'll set up hazards with them, and then Skarmory is going to have like all the pressure to set up hazards, be the main defensive switch into like most things. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Skarmory, and I think Skarmory's kind of got fucked over by like power creep a little bit. It used to be dominant, and now I think it's not good enough. I don't think it really needs help with like two other solid defensive Pokemon, and they just aren't here on this team. But I think the offense, just the Primarina and Arcanine, it's going to absolutely destroy teams. Like if you get these things in with a free switch in, they're going to get kills, and then you got like Munkidori or Flygon can just set up and just kind of take over. Same with Mousehold as well. So this team's really set up to let the offense, if Pokemon succeed, but again, like the defense is not there, and that's like a trend that's showing up in this league. Denver has always drafted the fun teams. This is why Denver's alongside like Kansas City probably my favorite team in the league, because they just seem to draft fun teams. Like I don't think Zone gives a shit if they're good or not. He just drafts a fun team and then just tries to win with it, which I think is like kind of hype. So the offense on this team is really, really good. The problem is that the defense just isn't really there. There's almost no good defensive Pokemon. There's just a lot of solid options like Lapras, Copperajah, Rhyperior, Gardevoir, like especially defensively, is okay. But none of them are like solid picks for any defensive core. They're just kind of there. That would be like good fourth or fifth like options for like good matchups and stuff. They only have Stealth Rocks, there's no other hazards, and Hydreigon is the only defogger. I do think Hydreigon is the best dragon just in draft. It just is. I think it's the best. It's actually probably the best offensive Pokemon and the best defensive Pokemon and the best hazard setter and the only defogger on this team. So like there is so much pressure on Hydreigon to do literally everything. It'll be interesting to see like how that goes. But there's a lot of good momentum on this team. Gardevoir does have Wish, which kind of helps Copperajah, Lapras, and Rhyperior, except Gardevoir is not a good Wish passer. So we'll see how that goes, but fun team, the defense just isn't quite there. Next is Chicago, number 17. So this team, the returning coach, he left and now he's back. Where the fuck is this team in my notes? Yeah, so this team, again, it's interesting. The offense, I really like the offense. Yes, this team has a lot of good win conditions with Hearthflame, Melmetal, Slowbro, Enamorus, Salazzle. Really good win conditions, and then you pair them with Klefki to get up screens and Thunderwave, the faster threats. I think this offense is really, really good. I think it's really, really strong. The Decidueye, I think, is really good as well, and Cacturne, I think, is probably the best tier 1 pick. I think Cacturne's like kind of cracked. The problem with this team is the defense. So you have Slowbro, you have Avalugg, and then that's kind of it. You have some like bulkier Pokemon like Melmetal who can easily switch in and take hits, just can't reliably heal itself, and then same with Torkoal, can switch in, maybe take a hit, once, and that's kind of it. That's just going to die because it can't heal itself. So that's the problem with this team. There's no reliable defense. Good teams are going to be able to take advantage of that. Avalugg, I think, is fine. Avalugg is a fine defensive option because with Terra, it's actually really good. Just get rid of that ice type. It's probably one of the best physically defensive Pokemon in the league. But you're going to have to invest your Terra into that every week, which would be rough. But I think the offense is good enough, it can kind of put in work. Now, number 16. This is the funnest team in the league. This is my favorite team. This is the league's team. Every single season, I pick a team which is the funnest. That's for whatever reason, and it is the league's team. It is the one where every time this team gets a win, we have to hype the fuck out of it. Why is this team the league's team? Because they drafted the entire Chandelure line and it's still at 16. That's fucking insane. This team is still ranked 16th, and they just drafted the entire Chandelure line. This team's actually like kind of good. This team is really, really good, and they wasted, I'm not going to say wasted, they used 2 picks to get the Chandelure line. This is a 9 Pokemon team roster, and it is 16th. The defense is really, really good with Zapdos, Reuniclus, and Quagsire. This might be, along with the Swampert team and the Porygon team, the only team besides those so far to have a complete defensive core. It's really fucking good. It has really good win conditions with like Lilligant, Sui and Lilligant, Toxtricity, all that stuff. This is a very, very complete, well-rounded team, even after using 2 picks on the Lampert and Litwick, which is like fucking insane. I want this team to win the championship. I want the team to win the championship that has like a full line of a Pokemon on it. I think this is probably the biggest balls move we've seen in the league besides Ninja drafting a full tier 1 team. Next, we have number 15, Arizona. So this was the team that I thought was going to be the best. Coming up like halfway through the draft, I thought it was going to be the best team in the league. And then I kind of sat down and looked at it again, and I got a little bit worried. So this is the best offensive team in the league by far. Its offense is insane the whole way through. Like every Pokemon is just insane offensively, except for maybe Spidops, which is just there to give like all the hazards, which is cool. It's got like 2 of the sponsorship Pokemon with like Sceptile and Scyther. Landorus, Sneasel, and Manaphy behind screens is like insane. The problem is that there's no defensive Pokemon. There's no defensive Pokemon. This team is very fast though. This has a glaring weakness though. With having no defensive Pokemon, the good teams are going to take advantage of this. This is the kind of team that can go 5-0 in the regular season, but then might lose like round 1 of playoffs. I think this team's going to stomp all the bad teams, and the good teams are really going to take advantage of this one-dimensional kind of thing with only just having offensive Pokemon. It's scary as fuck though, but it's going to be interesting to see. Like, this team was ranked pretty low last season. They kind of turned out to be like a top 2-3 ranked team by the end. We'll see if he can do it again. His coach is very good. The offense is very good, but it's very one-dimensional. 14th is Tampa Bay. This team I like. It's just missing 2 Pokemon to make it complete. The removal has the best removal in the league, I think. 3 Rapid Spinners, 3 Defoggers. Its win conditions are very good. I think Azolf is like a top 15 win condition. I think Azolf is like really, really good. It's just missing 1 more reliable offensive Pokemon to make it like really scary. And then same with the defense. Its defense, it has like a lot of fine options, but it's just missing 1 more to make that defensive trio really good. Like, it kind of has one with Mandibuzz, Rotom Heat, and then Great Tusk. But looking at this team, I think Great Tusk is actually like pretty good offensively. And if you're using it defensively, the offense on this team's not that threatening. So I think teams are going to be kind of glad if you bring a defensive Great Tusk. And even if you do bring it defensive, it doesn't have the best recovery with this defensive trio, with Mandibuzz having Roost, Rotom Heat, might have Pain Split, and then Great Tusk has nothing. I think it's just missing 2 things to make it like legit, but overall it is scary. It has a lot of win conditions. It's like a new coach, so we'll see how it goes. But they're at 14. 13 is the Wild Chargers. So this was a team that Donkey had ranked pretty high, and I gave it a few minuses on his ranking sheet. So this team, the defensive core that Donkey really liked the defensive core, I believe. The problem with me is it just doesn't have like any good recovery except for the, what's it called? Mushroom dude, Amoongus. So he's got Heatran and Dondozo as well. I think Heatran's kind of overrated. I think Heatran's fine. I think it's a little overrated. And then Dondozo's there as like a solid piece for like the third option for like, it doesn't get recovery. It just kind of like sits there and like slowly dies. Then he has Glastrier and Hatterene, which are pretty good if you want to use them as like the third option, like defense, which, I mean the fourth or fifth option for like good defensive choices. I just think Heatran and Dondozo paired with Glacier and Hatterene, they're not going to be able to keep themselves alive long enough to kind of... Same with Garchomp, you can make Garchomp defensively. Like overall the defense is fine, they're just not... They have no longevity and they're just going to get worn down over time. Tornadus and Amoongus are like the only things that get recovery. It's going to be tough for them to kind of hold up. Offensively, I think the team is still decent. Garchomp and Tornadus are really, really good. They're really strong. There's enough bulk on this team for Heatran to be offensive, which is good. Glastrier is a low-tier MVP, I believe. So overall, I think this team is good. I think it just needs... There are a few pieces that I don't think really need to be there. I don't think Lycanroc, Slacking, and Kingdra need to be on this team. I think Slacking is good. I think Lycanroc is good. Kingdra's just kind of there. I think these are all like pretty low tier Pokemon, so like doesn't really matter anyway. But I would, if I was this team, I would try and make a trade, like trade maybe Hatterene or something like that, just for like a really good, solid defensive Pokemon. So that can just come in with recovery and just like finish this trio like really, really well. Or something with Wish. Like that's the thing that this team's kind of missing. Like all these defensive Pokemon would be fucking amazing if you just had something that could Wish and just like heal them all up. So at 12 is New York Aqua Jets. I can't remember anything about this team. I need to find my notes. Why can I not find this team? There we go. Okay. This team's defense is solid. With the Hydra Apple and Scream Tail. Then you have like things like Shuckle, Stack Attacker, Overquill, Sandslash that can be like supported by the Wish. Like this team's defense is pretty solid. I think the offense is okay. I think the offense could be a lot better. To me, it looks like there's going to be a shit ton of pressure on Cinderace to kind of like clean up games. I think the offense might be in a little bit of trouble. You have Hydra Apple who can come in and be like a good wall breaker too. Scream Tower can like be a solid win condition as well. But if you're using one of those pieces as offensive threats, then I think the defense might fall apart a little bit. I don't think there's enough like reliable recovery on the rest of the team to kind of have them be like your offensive pieces. So overall, I think this team is solid. I just think if it had one more solid offensive threat that could like be a really, really good win condition to help Cinderace, then this team to me is very similar to the Greninja team. Just overall, I think the defense is better, more consistent. But it's like one of those teams where it's gonna have to weaken everything, so Cinderace can come in and like easily clean up. Number 11 is Cleveland. the Cleveland Bidoof. So I love this team. I really like this team. The problem I had with this team though is the defensive core is not complete again. You have the Petulant, the Therathorn, and then nothing. Like there's Tentacruel. I don't think Tentacruel is a very reliable defensive Pokemon at all. It can take a hit and that's kind of it. And then it just dies because it can't recover. There's no Wish to kind of help it. The hazards are okay on this team. The win conditions, again, it just needs a little more. Azumarill is pretty good. Armarouge is pretty good. I think Rampardos is like sneaky good. That's why I tried to steal it from him, but he stole it back. But I think overall this team is solid. It's not bad at all. It's just missing one good defensive Pokemon to finish the core, and maybe another really good win condition to kind of help out Armarouge and Azumarill. But overall, it is like a very, very solid team. I think it will be fine. Like I think the coach can like work around it, and the weaknesses won't show up too much. That's why they're pretty high, because I think the coach is really good. Now we get to top 10. What the fuck is that music? So number 10 is Seattle. Now this is where I think the best teams are in the top 10 here. So this team offensively is a little bit scary. So with Espathra and Galarian Darmanitan, these Pokemon together are like so scary to deal with. They're really, really scary to deal with. The problem I have on this team though, again, there is no defensive core. Not a complete one, anyway. You have Tapu Fini and Duraludon, who are very, very good together. They just don't get reliable recovery. So if there was like a Pokemon with Wish, which Espeon gets, but if you're relying on Espeon to heal these two, that's not good. There's no real good third option to the defensive core. Rotom Fan can kind of come in a little bit on the right matchups and be defensive, which is cool. Samurott can as well, but they're not that reliable defensively. So that would be like the weakness on this team, is like the defense. But Polly is a hyper offensive player. He doesn't give a fuck about defense, and I always have to rank it lower, even though I know his playstyle is hyper offense. I do have to rank them lower because there is no defensive. There's no defensive core on any of his teams. I don't know if I'm wrong or if I'm right for doing that. He kind of goes off on the regular season and kind of gets eliminated in playoffs early. I don't know if that means if I'm wrong or if I'm right. I don't know. But this team is scary, and his teams are always very scary on paper. He just hasn't won a championship yet, which is interesting. He's one of the easy top 5 coaches. Easy. Like, there's not even a question. So that's why they're in the top 10. If this team had like a new coach, I think it would probably be ranked like 25 or lower. I think this team's solid though. Another glaring weakness is that Duraludon's the only hazard setter, which is a little bit scary. And then your removers are Yanmega, Rotom Fan, and Hawlucha. None of them really want to defog. I mean, Rotom Fan probably could. And then Tapu Fini as well, which if Tapu Fini is running defog, the set probably wouldn't be like the scary Carmine Draining Kiss kind of set, which is terrifying. So the hazards control is not great on this team as well. Number 9 is Jacksonville Jolteons. Swordfish, one of the most improved players in the whole league. I really like the defense on this team, with Toxapex, Skeledirge, and then this is where it kind of gets in a little bit of trouble. It kind of has like Palafin as like the third piece, as like to the defensive core. You have like Weezing and Archaludon to kind of be bulky there as well. There's just a big ground weakness, and it's kind of like you have Toxapex and then Weezing on the same team, which I don't really know why. I feel like he brought it to be like, okay, if I need to bring my poison type, but they have a good ground Pokemon, I just bring Weezing over Toxapex. I feel like that might be why he did it. But I feel like this team's weak enough to ground where he kind of feel like he has to bring Weezing all the time over Toxapex, which I think might be a little awkward when he's trying to like team build and stuff. Then offensively, I think it's strong if he can utilize Glade properly. He has sticky webs to help Glade, so that is the main reason that this team is like ranked where it is. I feel like webs is very, very important on this team, like vital. With Archaludon and Glade, webs is kind of like how you enable them, I believe. So without webs, I think this team would have been ranked a lot lower. But this team can win a championship if Glade wins low tier MVP. If Glade pops off, that's how this team pops off. Number 8 is Baltimore. So this is the highest ranked new team, I believe. I believe this is the highest ranked new team. I really, really like this team. The defensive core is solid with Ting-Lu, Araquanid, and Mew. I think they have the best Pokemon draft in Mew. Their offense is good, like Mew is such a good win condition as well. But Tapu Koko, Bastiodon is actually kind of like really good with Terra. Solid win condition, now it has body press. Ambipom I think is like a sleeper pick. Ambipom's probably like one of the most drafted Pokemon. I think this team is really, really solid. Has really, really good hazard options. The removal's really, really good. The momentum's really, really good. I think this team is just solid overall. This is a very, very solid team. Number 7 is Miami. I think Miami so far to this point quite easily has the most balanced, like well-rounded team. It has like a really cool trio of like the Gouging Fire, Torterra, and Gyarados. They can be like offensive or defensive. You don't really know what they're gonna do. Paired with like Metagross, you can do the exact same thing. You don't know if it's gonna be offensive or defensive. Clefable, you don't know if it's gonna be defensive or setup. The big core of this team, it's very hard to predict what they're gonna do. And then you got Wish to kind of support Gyarados and Metagross as well if they want to be defensive. Probably one of the, on paper looking at it, you wouldn't say like this is like an insane defensive team, but compared to all the other teams in the league where teams seem to struggle getting like a good defensive core with all the teams around with 32 teams, this is probably one of the best defensive teams. And while being one of the best defensive teams, probably have one of the best offensive win condition style teams, like a lot of setup threats that can just dominate. Like with the Gouging Fire, Torterra, and Gyarados, all good defensive options. Mainly Gyarados is only good because there's the Wish with Clefable. But then at the same time they can Shell Smash and Dragon Dance. So you don't know which one they're going to bring, which like makes this team very hard to like team build for, I believe. Just very like well rounded. The hazards are pretty good. Has all of them besides Sticky Web. The big weakness on this team is the removal. Not good removal, and the special attacking options aren't the strongest. The Selgon Raiku's fine, but the biggest weakness on this team that is stopping it from being like a true like top contender up there with like the best of the best is that the hazard removal isn't the best. Number 6 is Green Bay. This is the runner-up last year. This is probably, alongside Swordfish, the most improved coach. He kind of went off and no one expected him to, but he did it because he's a fucking god. Gliscor and Suicune, probably the best defensive duo. It is missing a third piece to finish off the defensive core though, which does suck because his team would have been really good, but this team has so many good offensive win conditions with Gliscor, King Gambit, Oricorio. Suicune can set up and be like an offensive kind of calm minding variant. Shell Smash with Poltergeist. Turtonator gets Shell Smash. Like there are so many win conditions on this team. Just a lot of pressure on Gliscor and Suicune to kind of carry defensively. But if you can manage that, this team's a threat again, and it can make the championship game again, and we'll see if they can win if they actually do get there. Number 5. So number 5 is Washington. This is a very solid team. This is a very, very solid team. I think this team again, it's missing the third piece to like a solid defensive core. However, the third options that it does have are actually still pretty damn good. Like, it's not terrible, and like it's good enough that you can work around it. So with Jirachi and then Rotom Wash, very good defensively, and then you have Zarude, Mudsdale, and Articuno with Terra is actually like pretty fucking solid. You just got to get that Terra off before you like switch in and get chunked by the a million super effective moves that can hit you. But I think this coach is good enough to work around it for this team to be completely fine defensively and not really have to worry about that. And then it has a bunch of win conditions with Jirachi, Saralege, Vascalva, Slurpuff, Zarude, Hitmonlee, Clorf. Like, this team's legit. This team's really fucking good. This team's scary as fuck. One of the best teams in the league. Now the top four. Now I think the top four, it's hard to draw the line where like the god tier teams are. And the line is somewhere at 4, 5, or 6. So there's either like a top 3 god tier teams, or there's a top 5, maybe a top 4. I'm not sure where, if the team in number 4 in Washington, they are quite god tier, but I think they are really, really good. So number 4 is Minnesota. This is the team that I drafted for Missouri. There is one glaring weakness on it. Other than that, I think this team is fucking insane. I think this team is absolutely mental. So this team, its defense is really, really, really strong. Its offense is really, really strong. It's well-rounded. Probably, so far, I would say the most well-rounded team. Probably more well-rounded than Miami's team. So many good bulky Pokemon, so many good offensive Pokemon that can do both things, like Arcanine, Blastoise, Ursaluna, Slowbro. They can do offensive, they can do defensive. Aromatisse, you can think, is just always going to be defensive. Next thing you know, it Carmines and sweeps you. Thundurus with Dragonite, Aegislash. This team's fucking insane. The only problem is the hazard setting isn't great. They do have Stealth Rocks, Spikes, and Toxic Spikes. They just don't have many Pokemon that can do it, but it's not the worst. It's just, it's still there, and the momentum isn't the greatest either. But I think overall, this team's going to be very, very hard to beat. I think it's going to be really good. Ben is a very, very good coach. He just hasn't played in a while, so we'll see how he goes. But I think this is a top 4 team. Number 3 is Indianapolis Colts. Now, this was the team that started rough last season, sneaked into playoffs, and then made a dominant playoff push. So I really want to see how good this team goes this season. The team is kind of cracked though. It's a really, really strong team. The defense is awesome. With Umbreon, Clodsire, Sylveon, and Goldango, this team is, like, the defense is so good. The offense is really good as well. It's very, like, versatile. You have Sylveon and then the Goldango, they can be true specs and just like blow your ass out, or they can be defensive and then like soak any hit. Then you have Salamence, who can be like Dragon Dance and like a really cool set, but then it can be like Intimidate with like Roost and store you out. Umbreon's really good. Chestnut with Belly Jump's kind of sick. The win conditions are insane with Lycanroc and Quackavolt. And then Ariados is there for like webs, which is cool. We have all the hazards. The removal isn't the best. There's just Salamence and Quackavolt, but overall, this is a really, really good team. I think it's on par, probably on par with 4 and 5. So I think there are probably like 5 top tier teams. But these top two teams are the only 2 teams that I would say would probably be the best in like a 12 team league. Like, these teams are so good that they look like they weren't drafted in a 32 team league. They look like they were drafted in a 12 team league. They have so many good threats. And when I was doing the rankings, they are tied for number 1. They are both tied for number 1. They are both insane. I couldn't really separate them. They both had the exact same score, and it is San Francisco and Houston. So we'll start with San Francisco because I have their notes right here in front of me. This team is it's fucking cracked. It's insane. So when Donkey was ranking this team, he ranked it perfect. He ranked it in all aspects perfect. I didn't think it was perfect in all aspects. I thought it was pretty good. He thought it was like the perfect team, gave it like a 10 out of 10 score for everything. I gave it like a 8 or 9 out of 10 score for everything. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it is the best team with donkeys in the league. And I think if this was like a 12-team league, it would probably be the best still. So the defense is very, very good with Florges, Dunsparce, Bronzong. Laddie can be defensive as well, has Wish to kind of support other things as well. I don't think the defense is amazing, but it is solid. It is very, very good, very, very solid. Probably still like top 5, easily top 10 like defensive teams in the league. Because across the board, like defense is kind of lacking in this league. The offense is really scary too. There's a lot of win conditions. His defensive Pokemon can also come offensive with like win conditions, like set up on you. Some of his offensive Pokemon can be like surprising defensively. Very, very solid team, very fast team overall. I think it's really, really good. Lots of good hazards, lots of good removal. This is a very, very solid team, and I like it a lot. And then we have Houston. So this team is fucking wild as well. On paper, I was like, oh, the defense isn't that good. Like the defense is kind of bad. When I looked at it closer, I was like, no, Vaporeon kind of like holds this all together. Like Vaporeon is like the key to this team with Wish and keep Iron Treads and like Earthworm alive. Same with Beware. Beware's like surprisingly bulky. You can easily bring that defensively. Quillfish gets like Pain Split, which isn't like the best recovery, but it's like there. Same with Weezing. Like Vaporeon is like the key to this team. Vaporeon is the key to this team. And then offensively, he has Dragapult. I think Dragapult's kind of a little bit overrated, but I am man enough to admit that when Donkey has it, it's probably the best dragon in the league. As much as I hate to say it, because I think Hydreigon is the best, and I will die on that hill. Don't even try to argue with me. But I think if Donkey has Dragapult, Dragapult is just, it's gonna go off. It's gonna go off. He somehow traded a 19-point Blazion for an 18-point Spectre in a 1-for-1 trade. So somehow ended up with a better Pokemon at a cheaper price, and he has 2 tier 18 Pokemon that don't have a steal price on them. So he just has them at 18, which is fucking ridiculous. And then he has Laddie, which is at 17 cost Pokemon. And then Iron Treads is insane as well. Like this team has so many good Pokemon on it. I just don't know how he got them. I don't understand how he got them. It is so fast. It is scary as hell. This team's going to be a huge threat. And that's the rankings. So they're the rankings. You let me know what you think about them. This is an hour-long video. Fuck. They're the rankings. You let me know where you think I'm wrong. Where if you think overall we did a pretty good job. Donkey is kind of like the GOAT. Keep mixing up Hunky Donkey and like fusing the words together. It's fucking annoying. He's the GOAT. He helped me out a lot. This would have taken a hell of a lot longer without his help. But this season's gonna be fucking insane. You're all gods. I can tell this season's gonna be like incredible. It's gonna be fun as hell. So you let me know what you think about the rankings. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video.